All right, so I told you guys I was going to make a video about this. It's a very, very important story that broke a couple days ago. Israel knew about Hamas's attack plans more than a year ago. I know a lot of people on TikTok like short, very short, bite-sized content, and that's fine. I like doing that too. But I also know that the people in my community do like to go through the facts of something in an in-depth way, even if it's dense. So we're going to go through the whole article. And even if you don't want to watch the whole thing, please do like and share or watch it on double speed so that it can get into the algorithm. But it's also made clear that it is going to crack down on anything that goes against the Zionist narrative, even if it's the truth in the news. A blueprint reviewed by The Times laid out the attack in detail. Israeli officials dismissed it as aspirational and ignored specific warnings. Israeli officials obtained Hamas's battle plan for the October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it happened. Documents, emails, and interviews show. But Israeli military and intelligence officials dismissed the plan as aspirational, considering it too difficult for Hamas to carry out. The approximately 40-page document, which the Israeli authorities codenamed Jericho Wall, outlined point by point exactly the kind of devastating invasion that led to the deaths of about 1,200 people. The translated document, which was reviewed by the New York Times, did not set a date for the attack, but described a methodical assault designed to overwhelm the fortifications around the Gaza Strip, take over Israeli cities, and storm key military bases, including a division headquarters. Hamas followed the blueprint with shocking precision. The document called for a barrage of rockets at the outset of the attack, drones to knock out the security cameras and automated machine guns along the border, and gunmen to pour into Israel en masse in paragliders, on motorcycles, and on foot, all of which happened on October 7th. The plan also included details about the location and size of Israeli military forces, communication hubs, and other sensitive information, raising questions about how Hamas gathered the intelligence and whether there were leaks inside the Israeli security establishment. The document circulated widely among Israeli military and intelligence leaders, but experts determined an attack of that scale and ambition was beyond Hamas's capabilities, according to the document and officials. Okay, pause. What do you mean? Because you guys are always saying that Hamas has a lot of capabilities because they are a proxy of Iran. So why would you think that they weren't capable of it? And why was it circulating among so many high-ranking intelligence experts and none of them were like, wow, this is extremely specific. Maybe we should pay attention to this. Especially in a region where they are constantly doing shit as an excuse for security. That doesn't make any sense to me. You're constantly like, we've got to do this, we've got to invade this, we got to terrorize people in the West Bank, all because you're so concerned about security. Security is your whole shtick. So why wouldn't you take it seriously? It's just so sus. It is unclear whether Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or other top political leaders saw the document. Come on. Of course he saw it. No, that's what we call in political speak, passing the buck to the person you're about to throw under the bus. Ain't no way top political leaders did not see that document. No way that Benjamin Netanyahu did not see that document. They saw it. They just know how fucking bad it looks if they admit they did. Last year, shortly after the document was obtained, officials in the Israeli military's Gaza division, which is responsible for defending the border with Gaza, said that Hamas's intentions were unclear. Unclear? It was a 40-page document in which they detailed exactly what they were going to do. It is not yet possible to determine whether the plan has been fully accepted and how it will be manifested, read a military assessment review by The Times. Then in July, just 3 months before the attack, a veteran analyst with Unit 8200, Israel's signal intelligence agency, warned that Hamas had conducted an intense day-long training exercise that appeared similar to what was outlined in the blueprint. What? A colonel in the Gaza division brushed off her concerns, according to encrypted emails viewed by The Times. I utterly refute that the scenario is imaginary, the analyst wrote in the email exchange. The Hamas training exercise, she said, fully matched the content of Jericho Wall. This is what happens when you don't listen to women. Okay, but for real, the insanity of this, I'm genuinely having a hard time processing. So you're telling me that they did a whole ass rehearsal, and this whole ass rehearsal was taking place in front of you. And someone who is a veteran raised this up the chain and was like, hey, you know that book, basically, that outlines the entire attack we're planning? It seems like they're practicing. And then the higher-ups brushed it off. You can only understand how incredible, how insane, how unbelievable this is if you understand first that Israel has not only some of the most sophisticated military intelligence and capabilities in the world, backed by the United States, but that their whole fucking thing, their whole national logo, whatever you want to call it, is safety. They're always talking about safety. They indiscriminately kill Palestinians because safety. They limit their own citizens' freedoms because safety. When you put into context their obsession with claiming that they're not safe and everything they do is to keep Israelis safe because everybody wants to kill Jews and it's all about keeping people safe, this does not fucking make sense. It is a plan designed to start a war, she added. It's not just a raid on a village. Officials privately concede, had the military taken these warnings seriously and redirected significant reinforcements to the south, where Hamas attacked, Israel could have blunted the attacks or possibly even prevented them. Duh. I like how they say privately concede as if it matters, as if we all don't know that this is a fact. Concede or not, like, these are the facts. And maybe the reason why you didn't have reinforcements over in the south is because you guys were too busy trying to, like, bust up people in their housing in the West Bank. Instead, the Israeli military was unprepared as terrorists streamed out of the Gaza Strip. It was the deadliest day in Israel's history. Israel's security officials have already acknowledged that they failed to protect the country and that the government is expected to assemble a commission. A commission. A commission simply means we're trying to buy time to come up with more excuses. A commission to study the events leading up to the attacks. It's an excuse to do a cover-your-ass operation and delay having to hold people like Benjamin Netanyahu accountable. The Jericho Wall document lays bare a years-long cascade of missteps that culminated in what officials now regard as the worst Israeli intelligence failure since the surprise attack that led to the Arab-Israeli War of '73. Underpinning all these failures was a single fatally inaccurate belief that Hamas lacked the capability to attack and would not dare to do so. Why would you think that? All you guys do is talk about how dangerous Hamas is and how you've got to do this, and that, and whatever because you got to protect yourselves from Hamas. So why did you think, they're really not going to do nothing? It's fine. You're bombing hospitals. You're bombing innocent children because that's how dangerous Hamas is. But then when this happened, you're like, I don't think they're going to do anything. They're harmless. That belief was so ingrained in the Israeli government, officials said that they disregarded growing evidence to the contrary. Okay, this does not add up. It does not add up. Either you're lying about the fact that you didn't think that they were a threat before, or you're lying about thinking they're a huge threat now. Because if it was so ingrained that they didn't have these capabilities or that they weren't as dangerous as now you guys saying they are, then why are you going after hospitals? Why is it imperative that you're creating tens of thousands of orphans because that's just how dangerous they are? But you didn't really think that they were dangerous enough to follow an outline 40-page plan saying they were going to attack. Most militaries would be so lucky to get that info beforehand. The Israeli military and the Israeli Security Agency, which is in charge of counterterrorism in Gaza, declined to comment. Of course they did. Kind of embarrassing, no? Officials would not say how they obtained the Jericho Wall document, but it was among several versions of attack plans collected over the years. A 2016 Defense Ministry memorandum viewed by the Times, for example, says, Hamas intends to move to the next confrontation of Israeli territory. Such an attack would most likely involve hostage-taking and occupying an Israeli community and perhaps even a number of communities, the memo reads. The Jericho Wall document, named for the ancient fortifications in the modern-day West Bank, was even more explicit. It detailed explicit rocket attacks to distract Israeli soldiers, then send them hurrying into bunkers and drones to disable the elaborate security measures along the border fence separating Israel and Gaza. Instead, the Israeli military was unprepared as terrorists streamed out of the Gaza Strip. Hamas fighters would then break through 60 points in the wall, storming across the border into Israel. The document begins with a quote from the Quran. Surprise them through the gate. If you do, you will certainly prevail. The same phrase has been widely used by Hamas in its videos and statements since October 7th. One of the most important objectives outlined in the document was to overrun the Israeli military base in Riyam. I don't know how to say that, which is home to the Gaza division responsible for protecting the region. Other bases that fell under the division's command were also listed. Hamas carried out that objective on October 7th, rampaging through Riyadh and overrunning parts of the base. The audacity of the blueprint, officials said, made it easy to underestimate. All militaries write plans they never used, and Israeli officials assess that. Even if Hamas invaded, it might muster a force of a few dozen, not the hundreds who ultimately attacked. Israel had also misread Hamas's actions. The group had negotiated for permits to allow Palestinians to work in Israel, which Israeli officials took as a sign that Hamas was not looking for a war. But Hamas had been drafting attack plans for many years, and Israeli officials have gotten hold of previous iterations of them. And yes, I am covering, to be community safe, this horrific photo, and I also blurred. What could have been an intelligence coup turned into one of the worst miscalculations in Israel's 75-year history. In September 2016, the defense minister's office compiled a top-secret memorandum based on a much earlier iteration of the Hamas attack plan. The memorandum, which was signed by the defense minister at the time, Avigdor Lieberman, said that an invasion and hostage-taking would lead to severe damage to the consciousness and morale of the citizens of Israel. The memo, which was viewed by the Times, said that Hamas had purchased sophisticated weapons, GPS jammers, and drones. It also said that Hamas had increased its fighting force to 27,000 people, having added 6,000 to its ranks in a 2-year period. Hamas had hoped to reach 40,000 by 2020, the memo determined. Last year, after Israel obtained the Jericho Wall document, the military's Gaza division drafted its own intelligence assessment of this latest invasion plan. Hamas had decided to plan a new raid, unprecedented in its scope, analysts wrote in the assessment reviewed by the Times. It said that Hamas intended to carry out a deception operation followed by a large-scale maneuver with the aim of overwhelming the division. But the Gaza division referred to the plan as a compass. In other words, the division determined that Hamas knew where it wanted to go but had not arrived there yet. On July 6, 2023, a veteran Unit 8200 analyst wrote to a group of other intelligence experts that dozens of Hamas commandos had recently conducted training exercises with the senior Hamas commanders observing. The training included a dry run of shooting down Israeli aircraft and taking over a kibbutz and military training base, killing all the cadets. During the exercise, Hamas fighters used the same phrase from the Quran that appeared at the top of the Jericho Wall attack plan, she wrote in an email exchange viewed by the Times. The analyst warned that the drill closely followed the Jericho Wall plan and that Hamas was building the capacity to carry it out. Like I don't understand. It was all there. The colonel in Gaza division applauded the analyst but said that the exercise was part of a totally imaginative scenario, not an indication of Hamas's ability to pull it off. In short, let's wait patiently, the colonel wrote. Wow, that's amazing hubris. Just understand that families of the victims that were massacred on October 7th, this is what this guy was saying, okay? That's how much he took your safety seriously. The back and forth continued with some colleagues supporting the analyst's original conclusion. Soon she invoked the lessons of the 1973 war in which Syrian and Egyptian armies overran Israeli defenses. Israeli forces regrouped and repelled the invasion, but the intelligence failure has long served as a lesson for Israeli security officials. Has it though? Has it? We already underwent a similar experience 50 years ago on the southern front in connection with a scenario that seemed imaginary, and history may repeat itself if we are not careful, the analyst wrote to her colleagues. Incredible. While ominous, none of the emails predicted a war was imminent, nor did the analyst challenge the conventional wisdom among Israeli intelligence officials that Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, was not interested in war with Israel. But she correctly assessed that Hamas's capabilities had drastically improved. The gap between the possible and the aspiration had narrowed significantly. The failure to connect the dots echoed another analytical failure more than 2 decades ago, when the American authorities had multiple indications that the terrorist group Al-Qaeda was preparing an assault. The September 11, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were largely a failure of analysis. Okay, wait, but hold on right there. Yes, there are parallels. It reminded me of that when I first read this article also, but this was actually way worse, because even the intelligence failures of the Americans were not nearly as detailed. Failure of analysis and imagination, a government commission concluded. The Israeli intelligence failure on October 7th is sounding more and more like 9/11, said Ted Singer, a recently retired senior CIA official who worked extensively in the Middle East. The failure will be a gap in analysis to paint a convincing picture to military and political leadership that Hamas had the intention to launch the attack when it did. It's truly astonishing. And if this does parallel anything like 9/11, then we're looking at Netanyahu never facing accountability for any of this. He keeps saying he's gonna address it when the war is over. Okay, well, you have no end date, so that's very convenient for you. You can just stay in power forever. You never have to admit that you knew about this, that you could have prevented it, that your whole reason for being prime minister in the first place is I'm Mr. I'll keep you safe. And as I said, it's actually a worse intelligence failure than 9/11 because the specificity and detail that was in that 40-page document is way more than any American intelligence agency got before 9/11. This is crazy. There needs to be accountability because this shit always happens. The government fucks something up and then there's no accountability for the people that actually fucked it up. They fire a few like underlings. Then they're like, okay, we got it under control now. Hey, America, can you give us way more money to fund our military? And it's like, nah, every American should read this article because this was not a failure of money or resources or military equipment. So when they say to us, which they are right now, hey America, we need more and more and more and more of your money to fund our apparatus, our answer should be hell the fuck no. This is a you problem. This is a you have an insane far-right fascist apartheid corrupt fucking government and you're too busy trying to do judicial coups and terrorize people in the West Bank than to make sure that hundreds of people at a music festivals, including a bunch of foreign nationals who aren't even from there, got massacred. That is a you problem. The way these warmongers, whether it was Bush or whether it's Netanyahu now, get around this shit is just always more cowbell, more war, more money for our military. When this had nothing to do with lack of military or personnel capabilities. Netanyahu just wants to focus on the what of what happened on October 7th, but we should be asking him and his entire government the fucking why and how.